10 Reddit horror stories. Like and subscribe. The Shadow Man's Lullaby. This started as a world-building D&D before it took a hard swerve, so it's about the Shadow Man. He's the boogeyman, he's mental illness. He's those childhood fears that never went away. It got a little too real for me writing this. Not gonna lie, but I hope it gets under your skin as much as it has mine. The Shadow Man's Lullaby. Call me vile, call me knave, call me not but ill-behaved. Lawn I stalk, without a sound, in shadowed realms, I roam unbound. With heart of pitch, and voice of shade, past my lips, truths forbade. Lurking close, beyond your bounds, I skulk unknown, and shan't be found. Through lightless hearths I spread my plague, where souls, once proud, all but fade. Call me twisted, call me cruel, call me not the wizened fool. Where whispers wail, and secrets lie, in darkest depths, your hopes confine, with eyes that pierce, and swim like pools, I come for you, to seek my duel. I hear your thoughts, your silent cries, in labyrinths wrought by troubled minds. Step by step, you're overruled by fears that feed on flesh. Call me haunting, call me spawn, call me not your humble pawn. Near I draw, to earn your blame, to sow distrust and cause you pain, when light is spent, and day is gone. I prey on all who've come and done, whose doubts convene with hidden shames, those bold enough to seek my name. So hold yourself, this won't be fun. Just pray you last until the dawn. A true horror story that happened to me when I was 13 years old. I was in my room, lying in bed, and watching YouTube. It was a rainy night, and the sound of the pouring rain filled the air. Suddenly, an eerie sensation of coldness enveloped me, as if someone was watching me intently. As I tried to shake off the feeling, I heard the creaking sound of the front door opening. In a panic, I quickly activated a fake police siren in an attempt to scare away any intruders. After a tense minute, I heard the front door close, and I immediately rushed to my parents' room, tears streaming down my face. I frantically explained to my dad that someone had entered the house, initially skeptical, as parents often are when children recount such experiences. My dad took precautions and retrieved the gun he kept under his bed for emergencies. Together, my dad and I cautiously ventured downstairs to investigate. As we searched, there was nothing amiss except for an odd mark on the floor, which left my dad puzzled. He assured me that it was probably just our family dog causing the noise, trying to ease my fears. However, even as we returned upstairs, that unsettling feeling of being watched persisted, despite my anxiety. My dad eventually went back to sleep, convinced that everything was fine. But then, through the window, I saw two chilling red eyes staring directly at me. Terrified, I sprinted back to my dad, and when he returned downstairs, the sinister presence had vanished. That experience remained etched in my memory as the most terrifying incident of my life. Whenever my dad brings it up, I am immediately transported back to that moment, feeling the same sense of being watched. And it fills me with fear. Now, as a married adult with two children of my own, history seems to repeat itself. Just last night, my 13-year-old son came to my room, claiming that he had heard someone entering the house, trying to stay composed. We went downstairs together, and to my dismay, I caught a glimpse of those haunting red eyes once again. Determined to reassure my son, I told him it was nothing to worry about, but deep inside, I felt a shiver run down my spine. When I turned back to the window, the eyes had vanished. The YouTube Stalker. I've always been a fan of horror movies and scary stories, but I never thought I'd be living in one myself. It all started when I started getting strange comments on my YouTube videos. They were written in a language I couldn't understand, and they always seemed to be coming from the same person. At first, I ignored them, but then they started showing up on every single video I posted, and then they started to get more disturbing. They would talk about how they were watching me. Even when I wasn't filming, they would tell me what I was wearing, what I was eating, and what I was doing. It was like they were following me around, but I couldn't see them. One day, I received a package in the mail. It was a small, Black box with no return address. I opened it up to find a DVD inside. I put the DVD in my computer and hit play. What I saw on the screen made my blood run cold. It was footage of me, sleeping in my bed. The camera had clearly been hidden in my room, and whoever was filming had been there for hours. I called the police, but they couldn't find any evidence of a break-in or a hidden camera. They told me to change my locks and be more careful. But I knew that wouldn't solve the problem. The comments on my videos started to get even more threatening. They would talk about how they were going to come and find me, how they were going to hurt me. I tried to delete them, but they kept coming back, and then, one day, I woke up to find a message written on my bathroom mirror in what looked like blood. It said, "I'm coming for you." I knew I had to get out of there. I packed up my things and left my apartment, but I still felt like I was being followed. Every time I turned around, I thought I saw someone watching me, and then, one night, I woke up to find a figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was wearing a black hood, and I couldn't see its face. It just stood there, watching me. I screamed and ran out of the room, but when I went back to check, the figure was gone. I never went back to that apartment again. I still post videos on YouTube, but I'm always looking over my shoulder, wondering if the person who was stalking me still out there, waiting to strike again. Trapped in the haunted Monsione lay in bed, trying to fall asleep, but the silence of the night was interrupted by a faint creaking noise. At first, I thought it was just the old house settling, but then I heard it again, louder this time. My heart started racing. As I realized that the sound was coming from my closet, I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, but then I heard a rustling noise, like something was moving inside the closet. I sat up in bed, trying to calm myself down, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. As I stared at the closet door, it slowly creaked open, revealing a darkness that seemed to go on forever. I couldn't see anything inside, but I could feel a presence, an evil energy emanating from within. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind blew through the room, causing my curtains to flap wildly. I felt a chill run down my spine as I heard a low growl coming from the depths of the closet. My instincts told me to run, but I was frozen in place, unable to move. Then, I saw two glowing eyes staring back at me from the darkness of the closet. They seemed to be getting closer, and I realized that something was crawling out of the shadows, its twisted, grotesque features illuminated by the faint moonlight. I screamed, but my voice was drowned out by the sound of something tearing through the fabric of reality itself. I felt a surge of terror as a portal to another dimension opened up, and I saw the creature that had been lurking in my closet step through it. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before, with tendrils of flesh writhing and twisting around its body. It let out a near-splitting screech as it charged towards me, and I knew that I was going to die. But just as the creature was about to attack me, I woke up, drenched in sweat, and realized that it had all been a nightmare, or so I thought. As I looked around my room, I saw that the closet door was still open, and I could feel the same malevolent presence that had haunted me in my dream. What would you do? Imagine you're walking through a forest on a warm day, just minding your own business. Then all of a sudden, you see a creature, taller than the trees around you, seemingly just minding its own business. It has a shape you can only half understand. It's got extensions of its body. You can tell they're supposed to be limbs. It's using some of them for walking, and the others just linger next to its massive form. It's also got a head, which you see cause it turns it toward you. You can see it's got two eyes and a mouth, and the eyes are fixated on you. You stop moving, so does it. Then it speaks in a generous term, as it's seemingly just making noises that you could never make and that you've never seen before. If that even is a language, it's one that you don't understand, and could never understand. Even if you had a translator, you couldn't understand it. Your brain literally wouldn't be able to interpret those noises as anything else than noises. And yet, its tone, it doesn't seem threatening. It seems almost friendly. It then speaks again. It feels even less like a sentence. It just repeats this one sound in rapid succession at you. It's weird, but it almost feels like a calling. Like the intonation someone would use when calling someone, maybe. It then raises one of its limbs toward you and starts moving your direction. What do you do? Honestly, even if you believe it's 100% friendly toward you. The size of it, it could kill you by accident by simply taking a wrong step. You'd be 100% forgiven for turning around and sprinting the opposite way. Your curiosity be damned. Either way. That's probably what a stray cat is feeling when you PS at it on the street. The haunting. I can't remember when I started feeling like I was being watched. But it had been going on for weeks. Every time I turned around, I would see something moving out of the corner of my eye. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. But as the days went on, I became more and more convinced that something was following me. One night, I woke up to a cold chill in the air. My bedroom window was wide open, even though I had closed it before going to bed. As I sat up, I saw a figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was dark and shadowy, but I could feel its presence. I tried to scream, but my voice was caught in my throat. The figure began to move closer, its movement slow and deliberate. As it drew nearer, I could see that it was covered in blood. Its eyes were empty sockets, and its mouth was twisted into a grotesque smile. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. The figure reached out and touched my forehead, and suddenly, everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying in a pool of my own blood. The figure was nowhere to be seen, but I could feel its presence still lingering in the room. I stumbled out of bed and ran to the bathroom, my heart pounding in my chest. As I looked in the mirror, I realized that I wasn't alone. There were dozens of faces staring back at me, all twisted in agony. They seemed to be reaching out to me, as if begging for help. I tried to look away, but their eyes held me captive. In a panic, I ran out of the house and into the street. But no matter where I turned, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being followed. I could hear whispers and laughter coming from the shadows, but when I looked, there was no one there. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The faces in the mirror became more and more real, until they were almost tangible. I could feel their breath on my skin, and their fingers brushing against my hair. And then, one night, I woke up to find myself standing in the middle of the street, covered in blood. I didn't know how I got there, or what had happened, but as I looked around, I could see dozens of faces staring back at me, their eyes empty and their mouths twisted in agony. I knew then that I was haunted, and that there was no escape. The faces would follow me wherever I went, and I would be trapped in this nightmare forever. No rest. I had always loved the feel of the supple grass beneath these bare, rough feet. The tickle of separate blades bouncing gracefully towards the sky as they tried to escape. Through my wiggling toes, my heart would flutter with the dancing breeze, tiptoeing its way through long and wavy brown hair that fell dramatically from my scalp past broad, relaxed shoulders. The sun, its embracing caress across my fair, pale skin was intoxicating. My eyes closed to its illustrious stare that bordered grandiose against the unpresuming humble. An orb of stoic observation, but full of life beyond our comprehension. My admiration for life around me gave room for the memories that haunted me internally, thoughts that never gave reprieve, no matter the many sleepless, drawn-out nights. The days alone crying into the ground begging for forgiveness for every act I had committed, every mother, every father, every child, whose life I took to relieve them of the pains of this cold, dark world. I've lost count. And I don't remember all of you. Please sleep now. Please find the peace I never could. Did you realize as an adult what horror you faced as a child? It was only when I became an adult that I realized the seriousness and horror of the situation. That happened to me as a child. One winter evening at 7 o'clock, my friends and I were walking around the city. We were about 10 years old then. Our city is sparsely populated and its infrastructure is not particularly developed. At one point we noticed that a middle-aged man was following us, looking as much as possible like a maniac. We wandered into a disadvantaged area of our city, which was not the best idea, where the only light source was to lamps on the porch of the hostel. Located 100 meters after descending from a small hill, we decided to split up on this very sly, to check if this man is really watching us. I moved away from my friends for a couple of meters. We stood at the top of the slide and waited for this man to come closer. At first he went in their direction. They ran down the hill towards that hostel. Then he went to mine. And when he was so close that he pulled his hand to me, I also ran down this slide to my friends waiting on the porch. Looking back, we saw him standing and looking in our direction. After standing for a while, he went back to where we all came from. What lies in the dark? Mons strolled leisurely down Hanover Street, the soft glow of streetlights casting a warm ambience on the quiet neighborhood. It was late at night, and she decided to take her beloved dog, Danby, for a peaceful walk before bed. The streets were mostly deserted, and the air was filled with a gentle calmness. As they ambled along the dark, Bambi suddenly halted, his ears perked up, and his gaze fixated on something beyond Mons's field of vision. She glanced around, unable to discern anything unusual. Assuming it was just a passing squirrel or a distant nose, she tugged gently on Bambi's leash, urging him to continue their journey. "Come on, Bambi, let's go," she coaxed. But to her surprise, Bambi didn't budge. He remained rooted to the spot, his attention fixated on the invisible entity only he seemed to perceive. Mons furrowed her brow and peered into the darkness, trying to make sense of Bambi's unusual behavior. "What are you looking at, Bambi?" she inquired, her voice laced with curiosity. And then, in the corner of her eye, she noticed a fleeting silhouette. A chill ran down her spine, and a foreboding sense of unease allowed its way into her heart. She quickened her pace, eager to distance herself from the mysterious figure. Glancing over her shoulder, Mons saw that the shadowy figure had vanished. A sigh of relief escaped her lips, but her relief was short-lived as she turned her gaze back toward the direction she had been heading. A man walking his own dog materialized before her, seemingly out of thin air. Startled, Mons stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'm sorry," the man apologized, his voice sounding strained. "He tends to get worked up around strangers." Mons took a moment to steady her racing heart, inhaling deeply to regain her composure. Something didn't feel right, and her instincts screamed at her to be cautious. She mustered a nervous laugh with a polite yet guarded response. "It's all right, but I should be on my way." The man nodded, his eyes lingering on her. A cute name for a cute dog. His facial expression mutated to a spitting image of deviance. "Anyways, you said you're in a rush to get back home. Sorry for the disturbance." The man's facial mouth mutated to a charmingly nice smile. "Thank you, and no need to apologize," Mons replied, her tone guarded yet polite. "His name is Bambi." With a final exchange of pleasantries, Mons and the man bid each other farewell, their paths diverging into the night. Yet, as Mons walked away, she couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something was gravely amiss. The encounter had left an unsettling impression on her, casting a shadow of unease over her thoughts. Her steps quickened. Fueled by a growing sense of urgency, she yearned to reach the safety of her home. As Mons hurried along, her senses heightened by a mixture of unease and determination. She heard the anguished cries of a distressed dog pierce through the night air. Her heart sank as she instinctively turned, a flicker of worry crossing her face as she checked if it was Bambi. To her immense relief, she discovered that it wasn't her faithful companion. However, the relief was fleeting, giving way to a surge of alarm as Mons followed the sound of the cries, her instincts urging her toward the source of the distress. The sound led her to a dimly lit spot, where she found the man she had encountered earlier, but his friendly demeanor had vanished, replaced by a menacing and predatory expression. Before Mons could react, he grabbed her forcefully and shoved her into the trunk of his car. Darkness enveloped her vision as the trunk lid slammed shut, leaving her world to suddenly transform into a nightmarish reality she never could have anticipated. "Babe, what meat is this? It's so tender." Juices dripped from my mouth as I took another large bite from my burrito. My girlfriend's eyes narrowed with the question, an almost blank leer washing over her face. "Do you remember my friend Margaret?" "Yeah, of course. Your coworker you brought over last weekend, right? What about her?" "I read your texts, John. You really shouldn't have slept with her." Thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this video.